Our objectives for this lesson is to use the file interface to open, save, and create new workbooks, methods of entering text, navigating our way around, and identifying with different types of content. The file interface is commonly known as the backend to any Microsoft application software. In this tab, you'll find all default settings applicable to the behavior of the software, in this case, Microsoft Excel. Let's take a look at a screen recording of how we use the interface. So carrying on from our last session, we were basically clicked on the view tab because we were looking at the views, all right, and the workbook views. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to click on the file tab, right? If I click on the file tab, it actually opens up the back end for me, all right? And notice because I double clicked, it actually went back again immediately. So don't get a fright, just click on it again and it will actually open up. In some cases, it could take a while because the programs are getting extremely large. All right, now we can see that here I have all my options available on the left hand side. I need to navigate to go and do or click on whatever I need to do. All right, I can show you where the options are, but I cannot tell you when to use them. All right, now if I go and I click on my info tab, this would help if I needed to get information about my file as discussed previously. Now if I click on the file on the info tab, to the right here I have all my buttons and they highlight as I go along. And then to the right of that I have my properties about my spreadsheet. All right, who was tagged, who the author is, when it was created, and I can click on the properties up here and the properties will take me into an advanced setting of properties. You can go and have a look at that, have curiosity and see what else is available for you. All right, then we go to click on the new option. New option obviously will open up a new spreadsheet, and as we saw before, we have the blank workbook, and to the right of that we have a number of predefined templates that have been placed, which will also be learned in later lessons of Excel. Right, now if I click on my open button, I get taken to the file explorer and then I can go and browse whatever I need to browse or open any existing document that there is. All right, for that I'll obviously need my file explorer experience to be able to use that file explorer in Excel as well. All right, then I click on my save button. Now save and save as are, you may want to know the difference, and they're very similar to each other, but the only difference that they have is if I click on save, it means I've already saved my document previously. If I've never saved my document and it's a completely new document or spreadsheet that I've opened, and I click on save, it will immediately take me to save as. All right, as it is done in this particular case because I've never saved this document before. All right, so that is why you'll get up the save as option. If I have saved this document before, but I don't want to save it as the same name because I've just made a couple of changes and I've just used a predefined document as an example, all right, then I will click on the save as option and I will change the name. I'll go and type the name in here and I make sure that my extension is correct and I click on save and I make sure that I am in the directory where I actually want it saved. All right, and then if I click on print, I get all my print options. My sharing options will take me to another screen where I can go and decide how I want to share it, whether I want to share it with OneDrive, in Excel workbook, or I want to attach it as a PDF to send to somebody. That will help in cases where you need to attach it to an email. Then I have my You may at some point want to change some default settings in the options ribbon on the file interface. There are a variety of options which are divided into different categories. We will take a look at changing the autosave destination and set the autosave timing. Now remember that when and how you change options will be up to you. I will show you where, but you will use it when and how required. You may never even need to use them, dependent on how often you use Excel. So we make our way to the File tab, we click on File, and we navigate down to Options. I click on Options, and it opens up a different screen for me. Alright, now in this screen, on the top left, it will say Excel Options. Now, these options, as mentioned, are part of the default settings to your actual window. Alright, now every one of these is a menu, and each one is related to whatever it says here. So if I go to General, it's anything to do with the general parts of the actual interface. All right, on formulas, it's anything to do with formulas. Then we have data, that will be related to data, proofing, saving. So I need to be guided in terms of what I want from these options here. So if I want to change save settings, I'll click on save. If I want to change anything to do with data, I'll click on data. Okay, language, the same thing. All right, let's just quickly take a look at the general options, and let me just show you your way around here a little bit. If you look at the top, it will say general options for working with Excel. All right, and what I particularly want to bring to your attention is personalizing your copy of Microsoft Office. You can go and change the themes on your Microsoft Office to look a specific way that you want it to look. All right, you can put in a circuit where it will change the options to circuit. It won't show immediately. It will only execute once you go out of here. All right, and you can go and change the color scheme of your office. This all helps in terms of visibility as well. If you make it black, I like to use the black part because it changes everything to black and white, and that helps on the eyes. It's not so strainful on the eyes. So you can go and have a look at those settings and change your office exactly the way you want it, or your Excel. Right, now for this purpose, I want to show you the autosave option. Okay, now I'm going to click on save, and it's going to bring up all the options related to saving. Okay, now the reason why we have an autosave recovery option that I'm showing you up here is in terms where your battery might go flat and you haven't saved your document, or the power goes out and your computer just goes off because you don't have a UPS or a battery backup, or whatever the case may be. Okay, we have this autosave option where once you've opened up a workbook, Microsoft will basically save it every amount of minutes. Now, by default, it's set to 10 minutes. Okay, I can go and set here, depending on how fast I work, I can go and set how quick I want it to save. So if I set it to every 5 minutes, it will save information. Be careful for setting it too low, because then you'll get a lot of temporary files that are actually working along. All right. The auto recovery file location, this is the location where it will save the file that it's recovered for you. All right, now you need to know the directory where you want it to save, and you can actually go and type it in there, and it will save it to that direction, which will help you directory, so that will help you find that document easier in a place. All right, and then further down we have a default location for file save, and mine is set to C drive only. So you can also go, if you go into yours, you'll probably see it set differently, but this will all depend on where do you want to defaultly save any document. So if you click on save, where do you want it to save it automatically, and this is where you will actually set that. Okay, so go and have a look at these options. There is a lot more with regards to this, so go and check them on the side here, go and see what's available and set it according to your own preference. Okay, be inquisitive and find out different ways of setting your Excel for yourself. In today's world of technology, entering of text and or data has taken a back seat due to the existence of input devices like item scanners, export functions of other applications. This means simply that data is imported from other software, which allows for less actual data input into a spreadsheet. This doesn't, however, mean that you will never enter or type in content into a cell. Inputting of data is just minimalized. Given this, it is still important to know your way around your sheet. When we're navigating around our spreadsheet, we use the arrow keys. The arrow keys moves the cursors one cell left, right, up, down, depending on the arrow key you press. The hold, Control plus press Home key moves the cursor to the first cell in the worksheet, A1. When we press End and press the arrow key, the cursor moves to the end or the beginning of the content in the direction of the arrow that you press. When we press Enter, it fixes content into a cell. Now that you have a blank spreadsheet opened, entering information is important in that firstly, you must press Enter after entering data into a cell, otherwise your cursor stays in edit mode. Secondly, ensure to have planned your spreadsheet beforehand to ensure corresponding rows and columns of data. As you type the data, Excel will relate to the characters and format the cells accordingly as far as possible. Now I'm going to start typing in A1. Alright, we're going to use the example information that we saw in the previous slide. So we're going to start typing product. Okay, produce. If I want to correct something, I just press backspace, product, and then we had quantity, and then we had the unit price. Alright, we're going to build on the spreadsheet to actually execute a produced workbook or a worksheet when we are complete. Okay, so we're going to use that as an example. Alright, so I'm going to type gears. Notice that I've typed a capital letter E, but when I press enter, it will automatically change it for me. Alright, that's how clever these programs are. Okay, and then we had soap there for a quantity. So I'm just going to pick some quantities. It may not be exactly the same as the ones you have. It doesn't really matter. It's just so that we've got data to work with. All right, so now I can start entering my data into my cells. Now notice as well, I'm using a comma instead of a point. That comes back down to my options button where I on the options menu, where my default settings are set to commas to separate values or separate decimal places rather than the point. Okay, I just haven't got around to changing that, but yours will be a point. Alright, so I'm going to say that's $4.50 and I'm going to press enter, and there I have my data neatly typed into my cell, and I'm using my arrow keys to actually navigate my way around. Go and try that, pause the presentation, open up a spreadsheet, type this information in, and then move on. Good luck. Don't worry too much about your spreadsheet looking great at this point in time. You may have columns that are too small. You may have information that is not properly placed. That is what we will be getting to in the next couple of slides. I'm going to show you how to format your data in a specific way. Cell contents can be divided into categories of labels, data, and formula. This is not something that is set for each spreadsheet. You will need to determine the type of cells by the data information of your spreadsheet. Let's differentiate between data and information. Data is information in raw form. Only once the data has been processed, then the data becomes valuable and meaningful to the user, making it information that can be used to make business decisions, solve problems, and strategize. If we take a look at the example, it will show us that label cells are cells that label the contents or the data inside the cells. We get two types of labels, column labels and row labels. Then we get data cells, which is the data, and then we get formula cells, which is the calculation based on the data. Now earlier I mentioned not to worry about how your spreadsheet looks at this stage, because the way your content looks is dependent on the content itself. The Home tab contains all commands relating to the formatting of the content of cells. For the purpose of this training, we'll explore the font, alignment, number, find and replace on the editing groups based on the Home tab. Great, so let's take a look at our font option. We're on our Home tab, and here is all our font options over here to change the way our font looks. So if I click on products, I can go to my font options, just the same as what we did in our word processing. So if I click on the font type and I go down, I can go and set it to any type of font that I want. If I want to size the column, I can just go and double click, which we'll also have a look at just now. And I can also go and change the color of my font. Now, Just as in Word, it's very important to make sure that you use the fonts that are standard to your business environment. Look at what they need, what they want, and what type of fonts and sizes are used. Okay. Now that we're all set with our fonts and we've changed our font colors, now we can actually go and align our text accordingly. All right. Now, by default, Excel will take the text that you've actually put in and to align it according to best practices and standard practices. As you can see, the text was automatically aligned to the left and to the bottom of the cell. All right. And the quantity is automatically aligned to the right, and prices or values in currency are all aligned to the right as well. All right, because that's standard business practice. All right, nothing is generally ever in the middle unless it is supposed to be in the middle, or unless it's represented in the middle. But values as a whole are generally on the right, and text is on the left. All right. But if I wanted to center something, let's say for instance this quantity over here, I could just go to my alignment tab. Here it is over here directly next to my font, and I could click on the center button and it actually centers my text for me. And there I can also see that my bottom cell is grayed out. So if I press the center, it will actually center it in the middle. Now I can't really see a distinct difference at the moment because my row width is not very big. All right. If I had to extend my row width, like I showed you, can stand there. There I can see it's in the middle. If I click bottom, it would go to the bottom. To the top, it would go there, left or right. All right. So it's a simple click and it's a simple decision of how you want it to look. Now, I just want to bring a little bit of attention to the AB over here. All right. Now, this is used in terms of if you had a huge spreadsheet and you had lots of columns that are very big. This one's really small, so we don't really see the impact here. But if you had this huge spreadsheet, you could use the AB alignment over here, which if you click on the drop down arrow, it can actually change the rotation of the text for you. So let me say I want to use the rotate text up button, and I can go and set the width of my column, and now I've saved massive amounts of space on my spreadsheet going across. So if I had a lot of columns, because to make it the size of the content over here, I can then align my text going up, and that makes it just easier for me to read my spreadsheet going forward. All right. Now, wrap text, I just want to bring to your attention as well. If we have a look, you'll see on the screen tip, if I hover over a wrap text, it will show me exactly what it means. It means that it wraps the text around, so it stops it at a specific point where the cell is stopped, and it moves it to the next line. All right. Now I can use that in this case here by the unit price, because I can see I've got a big gap here. So if I wanted to change the unit price and make it a bit smaller, if I did this automatically, that would happen. Can you see there? So it throws it over into the next cell, which makes it look as if it's over into the next cell. All right. Now, we don't want that to happen. So what I'm generally going to do is I'm going to click on wrap text. All right. And automatically my information is wrapped around, and it's now made my column smaller, and I have a shorter version of my label, and I can also save space for my spreadsheet. That's pretty cool, huh? All right, in our next lesson, when we do inserting and manipulating of contents, I will get to the Merchant Center and show you that. All right, let's move on to numbers. The number group contains all commands to change the number type of the content. Now, when we talk about type, it is related to the content. Don't get confused between type and categories. Categories categorize data and information. The type of content in terms of formatting is the way your content is formatted in the cell, and generally something that happens in the background. If we take a look at the column labels and row labels, these are text values because they contain letters of the alphabet. The quantity data is values, and thus will be formatted as a number. But Excel will automatically format this as a general if not otherwise specified. Then we get the unit price. The unit price data and total column formulas, which are in essence currency values. Now earlier we didn't place an R when entering this content. Why? Because Excel would then not be able to calculate the cell because it would contain numbers and texts. So we are going to format it as a currency so that we can identify that the contents in that cell is a currency value. Information or data in cells also needs to look a certain way. The way in which the printed data looks is known as typography. To get the final information and the data in a presentable format, it needs to be formatted as such. We will take a look at the different types of number formats for different data or information. For instance, text, general, number, currency, percentage, and date. Okay, great. So now we add our number content group on the home tab, right? Now, remember that I mentioned that it doesn't mean because it's saying a number group that it's just applicable to numbers. It's applicable to text as well in terms of the format of that text, all right? So if we have date values or anything like that as well, it will be applicable to those, right? So if I see I'm standing on my gears cell and I go to my column number format over here and I click on the drop down arrow, and by default Excel would have made it a general cell. All right, in this case I want to make sure that it's text because I want Excel to see it as text, so I'm going to set it as text. All right, and so I can go and apply that to the others as well. Now the more important ones that I want to take a look at is the number formats. All right, now these are generally set to be numbers, but Excel once again has made it by default a general, so I'm just going to click on the drop down arrow and I'm going to make it a number. All right, but there I can see that Excel would have put in a decimal place, so I'm just going to go to my remove decimal places and I'm going to take the decimal places away, just to make sure that when we do calculations that Excel actually sees these cells as numbers. All right, then we get to our unit price. Now remember, we didn't add an R previously to these cells. For the particular reason is we would have had a combination of text and a number in the cell, and Excel cannot calculate text and a number. All right, so what we do is we format it as a currency. All right, and in this case we're going to format it as a rand because we're in South Africa and our currency is rands. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the drop down arrow and I'm going to go to currency, or I can go to accounting. Let's take a look at accounting first. Now, what happens with accounting is you'll see that the R is placed on the left-hand side because that's the best practice option in terms of when you're in an accounting environment. That's how they actually resemble a currency, and they always make sure that all the R's are left aligned, right? Now, if I went to the next option and I clicked on the drop down arrow and I just went to currency, notice that the R comes in directly after the last digit over there. All right, then the other important thing that I want you to notice is that, have a look here in my formula bar, it doesn't show the R's at all. All right, we can see the R in the cell, but here it doesn't, so that when I do my calculation it doesn't pick up that. However, I am being shown in my spreadsheet that currency is rands. All right, go and have a look at those, try those formatting options out, and I'll see you soon. And that's a wrap for session 2 of topic 3, spreadsheets. The file interface holds all default options to set behaviors relating to Excel. Enter must be pressed after entering any content into a cell to make sure it was processed. Otherwise, you just stay in edit mode and some functions are deactivated. Content in cells needs to be formatted according to the type of data information it contains. Label cells label data and information. Data cells are those that contain the information, and formula cells are those that contain formulas.